Hey there. I go by the Non-Alchemist, and normally I'm doing stuff on Twitter or blogging, but I figured, why not try YouTube out, right? So in this video, I'm going to share some of the reasons that I left Christianity, as well as my experience of deconversion. Honestly, it's been a while. It's not been a while. It's been a couple years, and so I'm still processing it. And so, sharing your story is always cathartic to me, and I'm sure it can be cathartic to other people who identify with it as well. So, first, I want to just go ahead and say that there's things that move people away that aren't necessarily arguments within themselves. They're more like clues that you're on the wrong path. And so let me share some of those first. A couple things. I was one of the people that was very invested in extended evangelism. So I've taken more than one person through The Reason for God by Tim Keller, and witness to people witnessing. Anyway, sharing the gospel. I've shared the gospel with many people. And one of the things I started to realize the more conversations I had with people that did not believe what I believed is that the arguments that had seemed very persuasive to me really weren't. And not just that, obviously one person can think an argument's persuasive and another person not think it. But the more I conversed with skeptics, the more I felt less persuaded by the traditional arguments in favor of Christianity. So that was one thing. It didn't really shake my faith too much initially. But it definitely was kind of, disappointing to me, for sure. The other thing was realizing that people of other religions appear to have just as much deep, resonating religious experiences as I felt that I was having. Now, obviously, there were ups and downs in my faith. There were times where the presence of Jesus seemed incredibly real to me, and other times where it didn't. And I'm sure that other Christians could say the same thing. But, and of course I had heard these objections before against religious experience. It was nothing new to me. But really, honestly, the more people I met and got to know that were Mormons, as well as other religions just in general, I started to realize, maybe this isn't as reliable as I think it is. And now again, I didn't just abandon the faith after that. There are, of course, responses that Christians will give in order to counter clues like that. But anyway, there was a couple other things. Obviously, Bible reading was big for me. So when I was 19, I've been raised a Christian. But when I was 19, I read John Piper's Don't Waste Your Life. So that really kind of lit a fire underneath me. And so since then, what am I? I'm 29 now. I forget how old I am. But since I was 19, I've pretty much, generally speaking, gotten through the whole Bible once a year. And at first, it really made me more confident. But the more I did it, the more I started to realize, the strangeness and violence of the Old Testament definitely began to chip away at my belief, as it does to a lot of people, as well as just coming to the realization that in order to have any kind of coherent... Oh, my dogs are going. In order to have any kind of coherent theological system, you pretty much have to flatten other passages that seem equally clear. So, for example, you may say Jesus seems to say this, but then you say, well, somewhere else in the Old Testament it says this, so he can't really mean what it seems like he means, and all that good stuff. And just having to do that, no matter, not just, I was a Calvinist, obviously you have to do it no matter how you try to systematize the Bible. It just almost, in my opinion, can't be done, because it's a human collection of texts with conflicting details and theology. But that's another matter, right? But that was a clue to me that maybe I'm putting too much stock in this, divine explanation of this book, these collection of texts. Let's see what else. The two things that really kind of pushed me into doubt were reading people who had been as conservative as I was with the Bible, and then switched their position. They were still Christians, but switched their position to something more loose, because the Bible, the data of the Bible just does not cohere with the stronger assertions of inerrancy, or the stronger versions of it. And so as I started to read more and more of that and becoming open-minded to maybe that they were right, and their arguments just seemed way better. Their model of explaining the text, that it's not this divine book held together by this unified purpose and scheme, that just doesn't work, in my opinion, with the data that we have in the Bible. So reading those and being more open-minded towards the Bible having issues and thinking that it did, and also thinking about the problem of evil as a Calvinist. Now, the problem of evil didn't actually like make me deconvert on the spot. Thinking about the coherence of kind of a Calvinist worldview with evil was one of the factors that led me to abandon that first as I was trying to figure out. But the thing that normally happens with people is that once they realize they're wrong about a few things, they become more open-minded to being wrong about other things. And that was definitely true in my case. And once I kind of revised my beliefs about some stuff I felt really strongly about, I was like, what if I'm wrong about this whole thing? Let me be a little bit more open-minded than I've ever been before and kind of dig into this. And so once I did that, once I actually kind of dug in, I just found that the arguments for Christianity are inconclusive at best and bad at worst. What else? Looking into religious experience, I just came to believe that there's no reason to think that that's a good foundation for belief. Obviously, you can go back and forth about that, but in my opinion, it's not. And so I had this, and then my view of the Bible obviously changed. I couldn't really look at it as God's perfect word anymore, and obviously there are schemes, that more liberal Christians can have, but I just don't think you need the God hypothesis to explain the data we have in the Bible. It just seems simpler to assume that it's a human collection of texts based on the features within it. So I just didn't see divine inspiration as something that was to be believed anymore. And also, I started to kind of have an appreciation for some of the arguments in favor of atheism and naturalism more generally. I thought that those, a lot of people don't take them seriously enough because they're good. So all of those factors kind of led to deconversion ultimately. It wasn't overnight. There was a period, I went through a short period where I was very angry about it. But, on my way out, I met with a pastor over the course of 3 months, once a week to discuss this, so I didn't just leave overnight, just get mad and leave. And I don't recommend anyone else do that either. Take your time, think about what you believe and why, and, it is what it is. So, hopefully you've enjoyed this rant about my deconversion, and hopefully it connects with you in some way. So, goodbye.